Hi, Maxine. We're going to take a look at your first two postings for the class. So go ahead and screen share here. So we'll get started. And here I have your first one, excuse me, queued up. And what I like to do first is to I'll just kind of do an overview of what we're seeing here as far as following instructions and so on. What I'm seeing here is you've got everything laid out in the order, logical order that we're that we asked to have them put up. Believe it or not everybody was able to figure that part of it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 usually means 1 is at the top, and they go through in order down to 9. So that's a good job. All the exposures look fairly well done, which means either your camera has a very good meter or that you're doing a good job with calibrating yourself. So let's kind of get into some of the compositions. You're standing pretty far away here, which is a good thing. We wanted to object within the environment. I'm presuming this is the structure here. You're far enough away to kind of introduce it in the space in which it lives. That's the whole idea. And I do appreciate that you are almost obscuring what it is. You're kind of putting it yourself away and making it a landscape shot that happens to have this building in it. And that's a good thing. This is an introduction to the space. So we want the viewer to feel like they're entering an environment before we get to the actual object. This also tells me a little bit about where you are as far as comfort levels for distance. Because some students are not good with being this far away from objects, and other students are absolutely good at this and not at the other. Now, when it comes to photography and composition, you have to remember the photography is subtractive. In other words, in drawing, it's additive. You have a blank piece of paper, and if I see this tree over here and I want it in the composition, I draw it. And if I see this tree, I draw it. If I don't want this tree, I don't draw it, right? I don't add it. If I don't want the car, I don't add the car. If I want the stump, I put the stump in. With photography, everything's there. If I don't want something, I have to somehow get rid of it, right? So if I don't want the car, I have two choices. Either I have to position myself so it crops it out. In other words, I move the camera so that I don't see it, or I move the car. So that's what I mean about subtractive. Photography is all about reducing, which is where this idea of emphasis comes into it. So as you move forward into it, this second shot becomes much more, I guess, critical, right? You become much more precise about what it is that you're looking at. Whereas here, you've got a lot of stuff that's questionable as to whether it needs to be there or not there, but that's okay because this is an overview. It's just sort of like, here's all this stuff that's around. And then you come in, and this is a portrait, which is definitely, you've got that feeling. I think you've captured it fairly well. You get the sun up here, which I think we could have lowered the angle just a little bit so you don't have the sun quite there. This is quite nice here, down here, with all of the shadow work that's going on there. Now we're starting to get into some compositional stuff here, right? This is quite nice and quite beautiful. You've got tension that's happening here with the energy. You've got this subtle thing breaking up the sky. You've got this line that's going directly straight across that definitely you were paying attention to. You have to make that straight. So that's an excellent idea. You've also lined it up with this and this. All these lines are happening. This is not easy to do. It fails a little bit right here and a little bit right here. This is a very hard image to make. Don't make any mistake about it. These kinds of images are challenging to make, especially if you don't have a tripod. So very good perspective here. This one is still pretty good. I think you're using the entire picture plane and stuff. So I think it's pretty good. This business under here, I think, is underutilized. We could have done something a little bit better here, paying attention to it. I think you were probably looking at all of this information here and trying to compose this really well and forgot this is back here. And that's the trick with photography. It's difficult because you have to constantly remember that stuff. Same thing here. If we were paying attention right to the edge here and we're a little bit more critical about where those lines happen, we would have had a much more dynamic composition there. This is where maybe the rule of thirds would have helped if we were working on that at this point. So we continue to get closer and get closer. And this project is really about where your comfort level is. Where are you most comfortable? What distance are you best working at? And it seems like there's a couple of different areas that you're pretty good at. This middle distance here is the one where it seems like it gets a little bit more awkward. You get a little bit better when you get closer and closer and closer. Seems like you're more comfortable again. This distance seemed good. So here you seem like, I'm not sure, here's not sure, and then you start to get better and better as you get closer. So we find these gaps where, ourselves that, we're comfortable or that we're more drawn to in terms of the perspectives that we like to make images from. This also tells me a little bit about where you guys are in understanding some of the principles of design. So for instance, shadow, how do you approach using shadow in a composition? How do you approach using line in a composition? How do you approach using color in a composition? And so on. That's not by mistake. I do that as the first project so that I can gauge where the entire class is. Where are you in terms of understanding and using these principles within a composition? That's something that is helpful for me just as much as it's helpful for you to explore. For me, I can see where the class is on these components and where we might need to work. And in other cases, I may find that, everybody seems to really understand shape pretty well. Something's going on there. Maybe they all took a previous class and they addressed that really well. So let's take a look at your rule of thirds, because that's where the structure starts to come in. And that is where we start to see a lot more of this dynamic composition start to happen as well. Here's your rhythm. Boy, you got that one turned in already. That's good. Nice to see that. That's funny. I almost opened that one up. I'm not ready to do a review on that one yet. Okay, here we are. Okay, so rule of thirds. So I call this balance because the rule of thirds does in fact help you achieve a better balance within your photographs, because you're using a grid in a way that allows us to create a balance without it feeling centrally located. It kind of gives either a balance that is upward or downward or to one side or the other. It helps us sort of give an emphasis on either side. Here, you've done a good job of placing the horizon. There's not a whole lot of verticals that are going on here, and that's okay. It is very good that I'm seeing that at least you're able to place that horizon in the correct spot. Here again, you got that horizon in the correct spot. We've seen this a few times, and I'll probably bring this up in class about having the sun directly in your photographs. I'm going to discourage everybody, because there are a few videos where I'm, telling students, you included now, don't do that. Don't let the sun be in your shot. I'm not saying that it's impossible to do. I'm saying there's all kinds of reasons not to. I'm, blinking my eyes right now because the sun is in my eyes, right? The same thing's going to happen with your viewer as they're looking at this. No one wants the sun shining directly in their face. So don't do that to them. Not to mention, this is not good for your lens. And it really distracts. It's like you have this beautiful composition, but then you stick this like hot, bright piece of white right in the middle of it, and it doesn't really help you. So just avoid that. It's one of those things that don't need to be there. Very nice. You're using the rule of thirds here in an excellent way. You've got the emphasis or the balance of the composition up here. Beautiful, beautiful use of the shadows here. That's very well seen, Maxine. And then we have our friend here placed right on that PowerPoint of the rule. You can see exactly how your rule of thirds is helping you here, right? Hopefully you can. Hopefully you saw that and you were like, oh my God, this is really helpful. Same thing here. You're using the rule of thirds in a really effective way. It's very literal, and I appreciate that. And you'll find yourself like running into a wall if we do it too much, but this is really working for you as far as the rule of thirds. Same deal. We don't have much of a horizon going on here, but it's in a good way we're able to show this sort of emphasis and balance. Again, you're seeing what this is all about. It's a very good job. This is midday kind of light. where you're emphasizing color and texture and shape possibly. So it's a tough time to make photographs. Your shadows aren't quite as forgiving as what they might be otherwise, meaning the shadows are going to be really sharp and really dark, and so your detail in the shadows aren't going to be as great. These shadows here, where they're softer and you're getting lots of detail in there, because you're out here in the middle, you can see just how deep and unforgiving those shadows are. Makes it really a challenge to make photographs that work this way. It's almost better to give it a little bit more time for that sun to go down, for the intensity to lower, so that you can have a better chance at making photographs that don't have that level of weight that's happening on the shadows. But your use of the rule of thirds here is excellent. I think you're doing a really good job of following these instructions and the parameters and so on. So keep that up. I look forward to seeing more of your photographs as we go, and we'll see you in class. All right, bye-bye now.